so all right, so we'll just give this a few minutes before we really get into it. I'm going to suss out some of these options. It's my first time, well, doing it planned live at least. So ngā mihi nui koutou. Kapai. Zach, yeah, cool mate, good to see you. All right. Let's get this angle right, so you can see what we're going to be looking at. Okay. So, nice, welcome, just in time. I've got a bunch of stuff I want to go through and talk about what I know. Good to get any of you guys' questions out as they come up as well. But I guess it's always good to see if anyone else turns up in the first couple of minutes. I guess first of all I need to put out a kia ora Ben. Kia ora, welcome. I am, yeah, I guess I need to put out a bit of a disclaimer at the start that this is just what I'm going to be talking about today is my experience, what I know about. I don't claim to know everything about Pounamu or be an amazing tohunga of it or anything. Hello?
That's right.
And wife just checking in, making sure I'm okay, I think. My story, I guess, is I started carving Pounamu as a hobby on the sides. I'm a teacher full time. That was about 6 or 7 years ago, and just haven't stopped since. So I've kind of just built up what I've done since then, built up my tools, built up my collection, built up my skills, and just kept carving. So, and it seems to be a bit of I'm keen to share what I have learned along the way. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're going with this. So what I do say, take with a grain of salt as someone's experience, as opposed to the absolute word of truth, which can vary in te ao Māori and Māori culture sometimes as well, depending on who you talk to and where it comes from. So, with that out of the way, let's look at some Pounamu. So there's a couple of main types that people talk about a lot, and you see a lot on websites and in books and stuff. So that's Kawakawa, Inanga, Kahurangi, flower jade, Putiputi, Marsden jade, they're all the same, and Kokopu. So let's have a look at those first. I've got a couple of examples of those. So Kawakawa is probably the most common. People talk about it being quite common. So Kawakawa is the deep dark green. You see a lot of what most people think of as Aotearoa New Zealand Pounamu is Kawakawa. Okay, nice clear colour. Sometimes can have black inclusions in it. And here's a big piece from the Auhunga here, a big slice. So right in the middle, in the core of the stone there is Kawakawa. And you can see the black dots in the rind. They're an example of the inclusions. Actually, the piece I wear has got a good example. Of the black inclusions that you can find in Kawakawa. So Kawakawa is pretty common and pretty standard in terms of what we expect to see when we see Pounamu. Inanga. So Inanga is it's a lot more rare. I mean, it's a sort of a pale green. Lots of different varieties in Inanga. Well, not varieties, but ways they can come about. And it is named after the whitebait. The little whitebait, little baby trouts coming up, which kind of have that same sort of colour, and they're called Inanga in post. So yeah, hold on, let's check out that question. Do the inclusions affect the overall value or mana of the finished piece? Well, that's an interesting point. Depends who you talk to and depends what you value. In overseas, in China especially, pure Pounamu or pure jade without inclusions is really highly valued and a higher A grade. inclusions can affect the way it carves it. The inclusions or the different parts could be softer, and so they don't create as nice a finish. Personally, I really like the character, and I think it adds mana with the different patterns and things that come into a pounamu, and adds character is a big thing, makes it look cool. So I think they're really good, and I think in New Zealand, in terms of Aotearoa and pounamu, that's something that does add more value to it than other places in the world, where and maybe that's partly because there's not as much of that kind of like the just pure straight jade pounamu in New Zealand, perhaps. I'm not sure. Cool thing with is to see the translucency as well. This piece is, when you hold up a light behind it, you can see right into the pounamu too, so that's what that one looks there. Inanga often doesn't have as many inclusions, but one of the things with types of pounamu is that it's hold on, I missed that question. Can Inanga have a sparkle in it? Sparkles. It depends on, I guess, not usually, not as jade, but there could be, I guess I'm not a huge geologist or anything, but like iron things or flakes or something else that is sparkly, that would sparkle in it, yes, it could have that, but it's not part of the jade usually, I guess. Or actually, there's another thing which I'll show you in a moment called Pipiwharauroa, which has kind of shimmers, so you might be able to find it in there. Yeah, it could be schist in there. Like I said, I don't know a huge amount about the geology behind it. Yeah. What I was going to say is that the categories for naming pounamu in New Zealand are largely descriptive of the colouring, and that's from what I've seen in my experience, is that they're just, to describe the colour, not necessarily the quality of it, but just the colour, which can be an indicator of where it's from. Some come from lots of different places, some are in specific locations. Cool, so we've had a look at Kawakawa, we've had a look at Inanga. I'll jump to Pipiwharauroa because that is, we just talked about sparkling stuff, and that's where you get a chatoyant effect. Chatoyant is about how the fibres in the jade line up. So this piece here is incredible. I've never thought jade looked like this, but jade is made up of a bunch of different fibres, and they real strong jades, they're all felted together like felting with wool, but sometimes those fibres will align in a straight line like this. So you can see these all coming down, and these have actually ended up as a very soft sort of all the ends of the fibres coming out, and then it was breaking off because it is an asbestos, and you can see my finger, all those little fluffy bits. It is an asbestos family sort of thing, so when you think about that fluffy asbestos stuff, it's a similar sort of thing to that. But what that looks like, and a good example when it's carved, is this. Now this piece here, I just received it to relash it, so I didn't carve this. Let's see if I can get that shimmering effect on the video here. So you can see the bands going across it. There we go. And with this Pipiwharauroa, it has this incredibly, it's almost a hypnotic effect when you look at it in real life. It's really beautiful. So it's quite rare. You don't see it very much. So yeah, Pipiwharauroa was pretty cool. Looks even better in real life than on the video. So yeah, so that's kind of one of the other smaller kinds I've come across. Kahurangi. Now, Kahurangi is probably the closest to what you would say is what people in China would value. It is usually pure green, hardly any inclusions, like nice bright apple green color, real gem grade sort of stuff. You think about gems, and it is quite rare. The real good stuff is quite rare. This is the closest I've got. Okay, so this gives an example of what Kahurangi might look like, but for proper Kahurangi, you'd probably be going even less patterning and less of the black inclusions and stuff in there too. But Kahurangi is a beautiful stone, really good one for if you want that real gem-like, gem quality sort of pounamu. So yeah, so Kahurangi is there. I think there's links with the Kahurangi National Park up in the north of the west coast. I've heard that's kind of where it's from, or you can find it there. Okay, Marsden jade, flower jade. So this back in the day wasn't highly prized because it wasn't, you know, it looked, some people would say it looks a bit dirty and stuff. Oh, cool. Nelson area, there you go, Nelson area. So this is from Marsden. Usually you can find it in other areas, but real good in Marsden. And flower jade has this orange, yellow, browny sort of inclusions that come in. And my understanding is that this comes from oxidization, that the rind of the stone, so that's the outer edge of the stone there. Question, so is darker green Pounamu with no inclusion still considered Kawakawa or not Kahurangi? No, so dark green Pounamu is considered Kawakawa too. Just often it has those black inclusions. There is no hard and fast rule. Some people might say some things are different, but yeah, there's no hard and fast rule on that part. And you can even see in this one there's a crack or a fracture that comes in down here. And over the eons, the iron oxidization will change the color of the Pounamu, and this can seep into the middle of the stone somehow, and can actually re-heal and be a strong part of the stone. This piece here is actually better to see that. So this here is much better Pounamu Marsden flower jade with these kind of like cloud-like fractures which are healed, so they won't come apart when you carve them. You can see at the end here, that stuff there will make some beautiful character and patterns to a piece. If you put that bit in there, on the other side, it's different again in there. So that's Marsden flower jade, and that's really quite beautiful and quite highly prized these days. Quite hard to find as a carver. People who have it don't like to let it go because that's really tight grain as well. Beautiful stuff to carve. Yeah, talking about Kawakawa in the middle there, if someone cut that middle piece out, that would probably then be considered just Kawakawa because it hasn't got any of the flower in it, and that's that deep green. Okay, Kokopu. Kokopu is really cool. Kokopu is not often what we think about when we think about Pounamu or jade, and it's named after the trout, native trout, which is got these flecks all through it. So it's often a paler color, but it can be yellow, brown, or the creamy green. Here's another piece here. And can make some really beautiful pieces. Here, like a Dalmatian. So that's kind of what you see if you're seeing Kokopu. But there's lots of different variations of it, but all of it has that sort of speckled variety to it. So yep, so Kokopu is around too. So those are kind of the big ones that you see a lot of. There's a couple more. I've got a bunch more smaller, I guess, kind of varieties, but I think there's a huge amount of different terms that are used to describe Pounamu. Tangiwai is one of them. Unfortunately, Tangiwai is one that I do not have. Tangiwai actually isn't a jade though. It's very translucent, and I think the geological term is bowenite. Okay, so bowenite is much softer, see-through, and was used traditionally more for adornments, pendants, jewelry, rather than for weapons or tools. All right, dendritic. I'll come back to serpentine one as well. Dendrite. So as far as I know, dendrites are the inclusions. And if we go back to the Kokopu, that's my understanding is those could be called dendrites. I think dendrites often are more snake-like, but yeah, I'm not a huge expert on that part. Serpentine. Yeah, so serpentine. So serpentine is not Tangiwai. Yeah, Tangiwai is a very particular translucent feel to it. Like if you can't see through it, it ain't Tangiwai. Serpentine is considered Pounamu. So Pounamu is not a scientific term. It is a descriptive term for the valued stones that were found in Te Wai Pounamu, the South Island. And it includes serpentine, it includes bowenite, it includes jade. For what I understand, serpentine is the same minerals as jade, however, or nephrite. Jade and nephrite are interchangeable terms, but it's almost call it semi-nephrite, which it hasn't quite been under the pressures or the right circumstances to fully form into something that is that real high quality, hard, tough material of nephrite. So as a Pounamu pendant, serpentine is totally legitimate as far as I say. It depends on what you're looking for and what you value and what it looks like, you know. So some serpentine is still very beautiful and good to carve for pendants. So yeah. This one is very cool. Now, this point I'm going to show you, this actually belongs to Ngāi Tahu. Now, if you've seen it across the snowflake Pounamu, it's called Tahutahi. Looks like this. There's a big issues in the 90s where this is from down there in southwestland, down south of the west coast, where a lot of this was stolen out of the rivers, out of the awa, and there was massive court cases, a lot of issues. And there's a really good video on YouTube about it. You search up snowflake or Tahutahi Pounamu and you'll see that from the Maori show, and it explains the whole story. But basically, these days, the only people who are allowed possession of Tahutahi are Ngāi Tahu. So this belongs to them, and this needs to go back to them. So I won't carve this or sell this. I've got a few pieces from a collection I bought recently as I've been sorting through all the offcuts that I've come across. This will end up back in their hands. So that was the outcome of the court cases and all that. Yeah, Tahutahi is not to be sold. There was when the decision came, they basically had investigators that went around through all the shops, all the carvers, and basically confiscated all of the Tahutahi boulders, pendants, everything, and went back to Ngāi Tahu. Yeah, because it was stolen from them in the first place. So Tahutahi, it's a pretty cool stone. But yeah, if you ever see anyone selling that, make sure it's Ngāi Tahu. Okay. Hapopo. So this is what do we got here? Hold on, bring that back up. Do you have to get your pieces blessed after carving? There's a lot of tikanga and different kawa that people say with Pounamu, and one of those things is around blessing. And one of those things that you'll find between different people, different iwi, is that they do things differently. And the way I take all of that is that you need to do what is right for you. Pounamu has a wairo, has a spirit. It is a porous stone, so as you're wearing it, it will soak up, like physical things, like your body oils and that sort of thing. And I take that to mean it takes on the vibrations of the atmosphere, the vibe from around it too. So if it's around negative energy all the time, then it's not going to be a negative thing for you to wear and to offer you, to heal you, to help you. And if you don't know where it's come from, say you bought it off a shelf, you don't know who carved it, you don't know the people who have handled it, you don't know its history. So in that case, for me, having it be blessed in some way is a really good thing. Have it cleansed, reset the energy for its purpose of what you want it for. How you go about that is up to you. Water is important because that's kind of where it comes from, whether it's the ocean or a river, or a special place for you. If you're including someone from if your religion is important to you, your faith, maybe a pastor or a priest, that could be good, or maybe just someone who's important to you. For me, my wife does all that, so she's my connection to the spiritual world. And if I need something blessed or looked after, she'll do something with that. She often tells me when my pieces need to be cleansed or blessed. She said, no, this doesn't feel good. This needs leave it out in the moonlight or something. Yeah, that's kind of her world, not mine. Does it have to be blessed once to make it noa? I don't want to get into talking about things like noa and tapu. That's not really my area. But I guess my opinion is that I think Pounamu, you could consider, you can't really consider it always tapu. I was going to say you could consider it always tapu, Yeah, I think you're getting into a whole nother conversation with that part. So I might just park that one for now, and I guess we could talk about it at another time, another video perhaps, tapu anoa. But yeah, I prefer not to delve into that one. I'm sure others will have strong opinions on that too. This one. So this is from Southwestland. This is called Hapopo. I don't know much about it or about its name, but it's a beautiful stone, beautiful to carve. There is a bit of it for sale at the moment, so which is quite cool, and it looks pretty cool with the light behind it too. So I'll just bring this up. You can see right into this. How's that? Yeah, you can see the different characteristics and the veins going through this one. So yeah, Hapopo, I guess it looks like a darker green with some bigger inclusions in it, I guess, with the black patches. They're not spots, they're almost like patches. Yeah, so Hapopo, something else I've heard and come across too. Auhunga. I've heard a few people describe Pounamu as Auhunga. So this could be an example of that. This end down here, this is heading in towards the center of the stone with Kawakawa. But Auhunga has been kind of like a pale, creamy green. I guess kind of like Inanga, but more towards the opaque side, I guess, and the creamy side. But it's almost considered a subset of Inanga, of Auhunga. So it's Auhunga. All of these you search up online and find out a bit more about them. But I've seen stuff sold as Auhunga and that sort of thing. Well, it's that pale green kind of color there. Okay. Another one that I don't have is, which is actually quite rare, and if you do ever come across it, look after it, is Totoweka. Totoweka is it's Kawakawa, but it has a red or a kind of bright brown inclusion through it, and it's named after the blood of the weka, Toto blood, weka, the weka. And so when you shine a light onto it, especially, you can see this real red, kind of ruddy brownish colors coming through it, and it looks beautiful. It's really cool. So if you do come across that, don't pass it on too quickly. It's quite valuable stuff. Kind of in a similar vein as Raukaraka. Now, Raukaraka is the word for orange. So Raukaraka, this is probably the best example that I have of what could be considered Raukaraka. Often, see, this is the outer edge of the Pounamu, of the boulder. Often I have some with small red flecks. Yeah, that's likely to be Totoweka. Yeah, so Totoweka is a cool stone. Small red flecks would be likely to be that. Raukaraka is got the orange and green. Oh, another quick comment here. I found a piece, I think it's Totoweka on Granity Beach. It's kind of greenish grey with pinkish patches. Possibly. All the Totoweka I've seen is definitely a nice, strong green Kawakawa, sort of quite good quality stuff. If it's, yeah, it's hard. It could be. Who knows? Until you actually really see it or get someone who has a good eye for that stuff. Yeah, so Raukaraka has the orange color in here. Often it is the rind, I think, but the better quality Pounamu is usually near the center of the actual boulder. So any orange that is close to the center and it's still hard is good, because as you get closer to the outside, it can get quite friable and soft and flaky. Not always. Sometimes the outer edge is just as tough as the inside. So yeah, Raukaraka, they make some really cool pendants. Imagine sort of a toki coming down here with this red fiery bit at the bottom and pale green at the top. Can be quite cool. Okay, a couple more. Have you got any Douglas Creek? Yes, that is, I think I've got two more. So we're going to talk about Douglas Creek and Aotea stone, which actually aren't Pounamu. or jade, as far as I'm aware. So Douglas Creek, which is a type of stone which people call Pounamu, and is from Douglas Creek. Now this is what it looks like. It's very distinctive with its patterning. Douglas Creek Pounamu, or I'm not sure. I think you get a lot of people say it's not Pounamu because it's not jade at all. I think it's a stone called pyroxenite, which is another igneous stone formed from heat and pressure, but it's very different with its mineral makeup and its properties. It's full of I don't know if we can see them in here, but clear pieces as well. Pyroxenite, yeah. So Zach agrees. Thanks, Zach. We'll call that as definite today then. So yeah, it's a beautiful stone. It makes some beautiful pieces. It's got magnetite in it. Is that I mean, it can react to magnets maybe, that sort of thing. I'm not sure this piece is thin enough, but might be able to show up what it looks like. No, you can't actually see through this one. No. But when you get a thin piece, it's pretty cool. It's not the best torch for showing those up. Cool, yeah, so it can react to magnets. It can be one way of confirming it. But anyway, if you do come across this, it is a cool stone to carve. And people do sell it as Pounamu, but I think you'll come across people who say, no, that's not Pounamu. But it's something that we do have in Aotea, and it's pretty cool. And last one, which is a special stone, but is not, but I think this is considered a Pounamu, but it is not jade, is Aotea stone. So Aotea stone has this blue in it. Okay, that's the distinctive part of Aotea stone. I don't know much about it or what it actually is, but I'm pretty sure it's not jade. And it is very valuable. Quite rare. It's only from one river down south, and there's been issues with it in terms of ownership and mining it and that sort of thing, kind of like Tahutahi. And at the moment, it is from down south, and at the moment, as far as I know, the river is closed. Like no one's allowed to go and harvest this. So definitely look after this stuff if you have some. Don't give it away easily because it's pretty hard to come by. Especially good quality stuff. This is okay quality, not amazing piece here, but Aotea stone is pretty special. And as far as I'm aware, people do call it Pounamu, but it's kind of like it's a very distinctive subset of Pounamu. Yeah. Last thing before we wrap this up, with any final questions, make sure you answer them before we go, is that often when we think of Pounamu, we think of pieces like we've been talking about today, and it's all Kawakawa, it's all Inanga, it's all one kind. But often we find Pounamu that's got more than one kind in it. And this piece here is an example of that. So this is a piece I've got to chop up. But you can see in here, there's massive swirls and different pieces. Like over on this side, that's like a really weird sort of, almost Inanga part. In the middle here, you could almost call it some of this Kahurangi, bright green, down to this almost Hapopo sort of black cloudy bits down the bottom here. And the interesting thing with this piece is that the way you cut a piece of Pounamu makes a massive difference. So if we look at this edge, I've cut a few slices off here. Okay, a lot of bright greens with that dark piece down the end here. And if we look at the other edge down here, it's all very dark and swirly, and it's got this big eye in it with this nice creamy stuff. But the bummer with that is that there's a bit of a fracture going all the way around it, and it doesn't stick together when you try and carve into it. But I mean, just the difference in those two parts of the Pounamu is huge, and they're so close together as well. So often I think in pieces of Pounamu that there is more than one kind, and sometimes you'll see people selling a toki that has several different kinds of Pounamu, and they may not say that, but yeah, that's part of it too. All right, guys. Well, that's all I wanted to cover off today. Any final questions or things that are on your mind? Kareko Pounamu. No, I haven't come across that. That's a new name for me. Kareko. Nah, no, not sure on that one. Like I said, I'm not an expert, don't know everything. Yeah. No, thanks, Ben. Get you later. Yeah. Yeah, if you do have any other follow-up questions or anything, just hit me up on my through Messenger on Facebook, because where I do most of my conversations. You get there through my website on Campbell Carving, or just drop something in the comments too, and answer questions as best I can. Right, cheers guys. Go keep that. See if I can work out how to turn this off.